speaking of lie to us, an email came out this week from Dr. Anthony Fauci.
Speaking of blatant unchecked corruption, it entered list
Dated-
of everything. Just
dated
enter the list of Congress.
February 1st of 2020.
If I recall, people were just barely beginning to talk about COVID at that point.
It was directed to several members of HHS, NIH, and NAIDA, whatever it is. Whatever
That place.
Whatever those,
yeah.
The 3-letter, 15-letter agencies, whatever, government agencies. In the email, he specifically references that the Wuhan Institute of Virology is conducting gain-of-function research.
But he swore to Congress
after he told Congress that was not gain-of-function. As a matter of fact, who did he have that discussion with? Was that Ted Cruz?
I think that was Ron Paul. Dr.
Oh, it
Ron
may have
Paul.
been Dr. Ron Paul, but they were having an argument back and forth about
Rand
he's like,
Paul.
well, Rand Paul.
Sorry.
But anyways, they were having an argument back and forth about they were like Fauci saying, well, they were doing this and this and whoever it was that was on Congress, like, that sounds like the definition of gain of function research. And it's like, no, but it wasn't gain of function. But it sounds like that's the specific definition of gain of function research. And no, it wasn't gain of function. Well, turns out on February 1st of 2020, Fauci said that institute was actually conducting gain of function research. So I'm not sure how you go back now and go, well, it's not gain of function, but you said right here, you said they're doing gain of function research.
But Sean,
I'm sure his argument will be that, well, we weren't funding that research. They were just doing other gain of function research. And I'm like, dude,
No, Sean, you misunderstand. See, they stopped doing gain of function research on February 5th of 2020. It was on the 2nd, you said? Right?
So, yeah, whatever.
The 5th, they stopped doing it. And so now, no, they're not. What they're doing is something that is similar to gain of function research, but it's not gain of function research. Yeah, it's very technical. You don't understand.
Well, actually, I think you could make the argument that, well, the definition of gain of function changed, because that did happen, in case anybody wasn't aware. The NIH actually changed the definition of gain of function and what gain of function research was. Yeah.
And this is all just done in good faith.
Yeah. Yeah. And the other argument would be that, well, we weren't funding that. That was something they were doing on their own, but we weren't funding that, but somebody else might have been.
So if I give my drug dealer, hypothetically in Minecraft, $500 for that really nice lighter that he gives me, and then he just gives me, say, a bunch of drugs afterwards. I didn't buy the drugs; he just gave them to me, right?
Right. Yeah. Absolutely.
I didn't buy them. Yeah.
That's definitely how the government's going to see that when you do.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Like these aren't mine, officer. I'm just holding them for a friend. I didn't buy them. No.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not. We just gave money to the lab for other things, and then.
Right.
They happen to be doing gain of function research, of which we have great interest in, but we didn't pay them for that.
On bat coronaviruses.
Yes, which is specific. Like we had great interest.
And their mutations, and how they could transfer from bat to human.
Right.
He outlines that in the freaking email, bro.
Sure,
but bad.
But what is that? I mean, we all know that it's ridiculous to think that coronavirus escaped from this coronavirus lab. It clearly must have come from this crazy wet market, many miles away, right? Obviously, that's
no, that wasn't many miles away.
What is more likely?
The wet market was across the street, bro. It was across the street.
Oh no, right, that's right. The wet market was across the street, which is just
The
okay. But
but no,
no,
the
but the
virus
bat, yeah,
itself came from 1,000 miles away in the caves up in the hills. Yeah, that's how that
right.
happened.
Yes, yes. The
Speaking of things that were said but not said, the
because they weren't allowed to be
we
said.
man, this has been a wild one. So this actually came out, put it on the list for us to talk about, and by the time we get around to talking about it, it's already shot down. But so state of Missouri versus I don't remember, U.S. government, to whatever, DOJ.
Right.
Anyways, they got an injunction against government collusion with social media. And so basically the judge stepped up and said, "Hey, no, you like we need to hear this argument because they have a fair claim, a true claim that is, potentially viable about government interference and colluding with social media, which I think the argument from the state of Missouri was that it's a violation of First Amendment of citizens' First Amendment rights of the state of Missouri, and I think that's accurate and that's probably true. Well, I think today or no, or maybe Friday, um, the government was fighting that injunction and got a stay of that injunction. So now that injunction no longer keeps them from colluding with social media. I don't understand. Like, why does the government need to have a conversation with social media? There's no good reason for it. None.
Well, and
Absolutely
it
none.
was there was a bunch of admission that, like, the thing that confuses me as I was reading on a little bit, and they basically admit to the fact that they were violating the initial injunction in their argument, and that was part of the argument. It's like, oh, we're doing it anyways, and I, and
Oh,
maybe I don't understand it correctly. Like
there
I
are
was
other.
going to look at
I haven't heard that, but like the other argument that was fun was having them go in front of Congress because they're getting called in front of Congress over a bunch of this stuff too. um, and going, oh no, well no, we weren't. We definitely weren't colluding with them. Like we there's nothing wrong. I'm trying to remember the exact words, but basically it was there's nothing wrong with us pointing out to social media companies that there are people who are violating their own terms of service. We didn't do anything. We just were pointing out to them that they have people that are violating their TOS. Okay, that's
yeah.
not
If
the
you look,
case. Turns out there are emails where they basically, under threat of government intervention, said, you need to go look at this guy and take him off, take him down, whatever, her down, whatever, whoever it was. And when it wasn't done fast enough, they followed up and were like, hey, what are you doing about this? And they go, oh, well, we don't think it violates our TOS. Well, you need to look at it again because it definitely does violate your TOS, and you need to, like, the imminent threat
it's
of, like, either you're going to agree with me or I'm going to come after you
well, I'd
is
say even
very, very real there. And
I would say
okay,
there's an implicit threat with government pointing that out to anybody. Oh, this violates your
absolutely,
terms of service. It carries an
absolutely
implicit threat when it comes from the government.
correct. I
Like
would agree.
they don't need to do
Doesn't make
that.
any sense.
There's no need to do that. Now, if there is a generic portal for anonymous reporting of this stuff and the government did that, I would say fine.
I don't
That's
even
all they did.
like
But
if they were literally only doing if they were doing anything with regards to like legal speech, right? Like threatening somebody, threatening people with, like, calling to action of threatening somebody with bodily harm. I can understand, like, hey, flagging that, hey, I don't know if your guys caught this, but we saw this. This is somebody threatening, you know, that they're going to try to m- murder somebody, right? Okay. I don't have a problem with you calling that out because that's non-legal speech. When you're
yeah,
impeding somebody's First Amendment protected speech because you don't like what they have to say and it doesn't follow your approved narrative, that's a problem. That's a real problem.
enormous problem. Yeah, I mean it's if the government says it, it implicitly comes with
It gets better.
oh no.
It does. So they're like, "Oh, we were just pointing this out to them," right? As we found stuff.
Yeah, isn't that what the
It's no big
FBI
deal.
says when we're just
Wait,
asking you
wait,
questions?
gets better, gets better. Turns out they're like, really? That's interesting because in this email, you reference your meeting that you had. So wait, so y'all were meeting with them? How often were you meeting with them? Turns out they were meeting on with them on they had a regularly scheduled meetings with the people who were in charge of controlling what was censored on social media.
Now,
And
to
that
me, that's
includes Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and like just the whole gambit.
I mean, to me, that sounds like there should be cause for these social media companies to be complicit and liable for that because they colluded with government to suppress your
Section
constitutional
230
rights.
immunity.
But they're I don't know how
We have
Section 230 immunity grants you protection against constitutional amendment
they,
violations.
I agree, but Section 230 has been broadened to the to create an exception to where basically anything that social media does is they're immune from suit. That's how it's been
Yeah, I
that's how it's been
okay.
litigated, and it's just it's not
Yeah. I
right.
mean, it's
I
basically,
don't agree with that reading of Section 230, but that's been their defense, and they've won on a
and
lot of
this is why
cases.
I just don't think we have like this is that is a ridiculous reading. It has not been evaluated in court by any means. I mean, there needs to be just countless lawsuits. I mean, yeah,
I mean, the other thing that you could argue is that whoever these government individuals were, they typically would be immune from suit. But if they're doing things that are outside the purview of what is considered their their job description because they're violating people's human rights,
yeah, I don't know
then
what
that doesn't apply anymore.
yeah, I don't know what the legal precedent. I would hope there'd be something like just
Legal precedent. We
well, I don't know
just had
what
one not that long ago. It was George Floyd.
huh?
George in the death of George Floyd, they determined that while officers generally have qualified immunity,
Yeah,
he didn't because he was violating civil rights, which means that he could
sure,
then be
but
sued individually. Whereas
okay.
typically, if you're an officer involved in the duties of your job and somebody dies, you're exempt because you have qualified immunity. Well, qualified
That's
immunity doesn't apply anymore if you can get the judge, whoever, like you can file the suit, and if the judge says, they might have violated your civil rights. So if they did, then you can move like we can move forward. You could get to discovery. If you get to discovery and you start pulling some of these things that are in FOIA requests, you might be able to actually win a lawsuit if you were somebody who was suppressed or who was, I mean, better yet, kicked off of social media because of government collusion with social media companies. Like that, they violated your civil rights. They no
so
longer
you're
have.
saying sue them for civil rights violations?
Mhm.
Okay, I was thinking criminal prosecution, but that's just I guess that's too much to hope for.
Well,
I
I
mean,
agree. I think a lot of those people ought to go to jail, but that's not going to happen. Like, let's be real.
oh no, no.
Like,
But
we've seen that. I mean, whose cocaine was it? Who, whose whose cocaine?
they don't know. It was only in one of the most secure areas of the country.
I saw another article. I need to go look at it, but
Oh, did you hear they didn't even interview Hunter Biden?
they didn't interview anybody.
Anybody?
Anybody.
Like not even like the front desk guard?
Zero interviews conducted, is my understanding.
So they know
Now,
who it is. They're just not going to pursue it.
the
That's what this comes down to.
yeah, I mean, who was it? Oh, I think Trump said it. I think he was maybe at that Turning Point USA thing that they had just the other day.
Okay.
I don't know. I think it may have been him. I'm not sure. But somebody pointed out they were like, really, the most secure building? They have cameras freaking everywhere, and they don't know whose cocaine it is. Come on, like
Yeah.
no, nobody believes that. Nobody believes that in the
Yes.
slightest.
In fact, the more they don't say it's anybody, everybody's concluding it's hunters.
Mhm.
It's
Well, I saw an article, and I need to go read it because I didn't like I just glanced at it and didn't have time to mess with it. That evidently they've found more drugs around the White House here recently.
gee, I wonder who those are.
You know, just just casually, like, don't worry about like a little bit of drugs over there. There's a little bit of stuff
What are you
over there.
talking?
Like,
I don't
don't
want
yeah, don't
cocaine.
worry
No,
about
that's
that.
not mine.
It's not my cocaine. Look, I didn't do the cocaine to get high. I just like the way it smelled. It's cool.
That's what I tell everybody.
What was the other interesting article that I saw today? Oh, Janet Yellen. Did you see how she got embarrassed whenever she was in China, where she was bowing to the wrong person, didn't
Oh my god.
called somebody by the wrong name, all sorts of funny stuff.
I
Okay,
mean,
cool.
she's just embarrassed
Well,
in
the
general,
reason
but
for that, well, no, it's not her own fault. She accidentally ingested uh, psilocybin.
how do you accidentally ingest psilocybin?
Well, this is the weird. This is one of this is QAnon level, right? So she had gone to a place to go eat,
Okay.
and they had like she supposedly like there was an article about this. She supposedly had like two or three orders of the mushrooms from that place, and they're saying, yeah, you're putting two and two together. Like that's QAnon level, right? Like this,
That's
it's stretching.
okay. I think she just like no.
Think
Okay.
maybe she's just stupid and doesn't know what she's doing whenever she's in an international setting. Doesn't like listen to people or follow. Like she's high now, right? Like that's what you're telling me. You're telling me that she accidentally
she's not dumb. She's just
ingested.
high.
You're right. That's a yeah.
That seems worse.